The House will come to order. Calendar of the day. The first bill on the calendar is Senate File 1816. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 1816, number 1 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to property.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Smith, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. Senate File 1816, the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. This is the non-controversial, bipartisan supported bill. I'd like to thank Representative Hortman for her assistance with this. This is supported by the State Bar. This is endorsed by the National Conference of Commissioners of Uniform State Laws. This bill is technical in nature, and this updates the law into the 21st century, back from the original enactment in 1918. I urge a green vote. Thank you.
Discussion to the bill. The member from Hennepin, Representative Hortman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I think it's a good bill, and I hope everybody will vote green.
Further discussion to the bill? There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File number 1816.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Probably signed it too early.
Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. There being 125 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 417. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 417, number 2 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to professional engineers.
The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill, to your bill.
Thank you, Speaker and members. I want to thank my co-authors, Representative Uruso, who is a professional engineer, and my brother, Representative Daniels, who was this is the first bill that my brother and I have done together. And the reason is because he actually has a son who is a professional engineer. And for the past 3 years, the engineers have been struggling with something, and that is they have a professional engineer license, but they keep being asked to do more and more certifications that are already within their scope of practice. So what this does, it clarifies current language to say that if it's within your scope of practice, we don't need an additional certification or licensure. So it's the agencies are on board with it, as are the local governments, and I look for your green vote.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File number 417.
Third reading. Any discussion to the bill? Seeing none and hearing none, the clerk will give the bill, or the clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. Yaruso votes aye. There being 127 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 1218. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 1218, number 4 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to legislative enactments.
The member from Rock, Representative Schomacker, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. The bill in front of us is the Revisor's bill. It's non-substantial cleanup language from past sessions. It updates cross-references and cleans up erroneous language. And I would ask you for your support. We have an amendment 2 to report.
I don't know if he's got it up there. Yes. Yes, I have that. Grab one of the packets. Don't have an amendment. Do you have it? Okay.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Schomacker moves to amend Senate File number 1218, the second engrossment, and the amendment is coded A15-0448.
Representative Schomacker, to your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bill that we have before us today went through both civil law and taxes. And in taxes, there was a question about some of the codifying language that we had in the cross-referencing. This is a result of that. It's just codifying more language to provide some comfort language for the members there to make sure that everyone is doing what they need to be doing with the reporting process in that part there. And so I'd ask for your support.
Discussion to the amendment. The member from Ramsey, Representative Lesh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Schomacker, for including this language in. Members, the Revisor had the original language in, but there were questions in taxes because of what happened last year on the Timber J bill. Members recall that the health plans got a one-year reprieve prior to when they had to disclose health care data that was being paid for by Minnesota taxpayers, and nothing has come forth from the HMOs in the 1 year since that time. So there was a large suspicion among folks that they were going to try to slip something in at the end of session. We spoke with the Revisor. She said no, that was not her intent whatsoever, but this was comfort language just to assure us that in fact the language does just what it intends, and it's not going to leave a loophole to be reinterpreted to further obscure that healthcare data that is due to be fully disclosed in June. I myself have some questions as to, because there's been no word from the health plans since a year ago, whether or not that will actually happen. But I appreciate the Revisor as well as Representative Schomacker for working with us on this comfort language. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further discussion to the bill. The member from Hennepin, the Minority Leader, Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like a call of the House.
Representative Thiessen asked for a call of the House. Seeing 10 hands, there will be a call of the House. The clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. We are on the Schomacker amendment. Any other discussion to the Schomacker amendment? Seeing none and hearing none, all those in favor of the Schomacker amendment signify by saying aye. Those opposed? The motion carries and the amendment is adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File Number 1218, as amended.
For third reading, discussion to the bill. The member from Hennepin, Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the author yield for a question?
He will yield. Representative Thiessen.
Thank you. I'm looking at page 83, and there's some language in here dealing with our statutes related to bullion coin dealers. And I thought the House's position was we were going to repeal that language. So I was just wondering why we have that in this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Thiessen, it's a cross-reference to some other non-substantial criminal law, and so the revisers recommended that we put that in. That's why they put it in their bill.
Representative Thiessen.
Okay, thank you. I think it was something about a cross-reference that we need to fix, which would then go away if you actually repeal the bullion language that's in the bill. Okay. And then on page 23, there's some language about aid reductions and levy revenue recognition changes, and I'm just wondering what that provision has to do with.
Representative Thiessen is asking Representative Schomacker to yield to another
I'm sorry,
question.
yes, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Schomacker.
So the question again, I'm sorry about that, Mr. Speaker. On page 23, line 27 to 29, there's some changes with how we do to our aid reduction levy revenue recognition change statutes, and I just wonder what we're doing in that provision. I don't think this bill went to the tax committee.
Representative Schomacker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Representative Thiessen. The bill did go through the tax committee, but for section 23 that you're asking about, the amendment removes obsolete language. Minnesota statute section 124D.86 was repealed for fiscal year 2014 and later by laws in 2011, the first special session, Chapter 11, Article 2, Section 51.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I guess I was looking at the
Representative
Senate path because this is a Senate file. So I apologize for that. And then the last one that I was wondering about on page 39, we're eliminating a reference to some groups who could get education and prevention services, groups with special needs, on lines 6 and 7. I was just wondering what that was about.
Representative Thiessen, are you asking Representative Schomacker to yield to an additional question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Schomacker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Thiessen. The amendment removes obsolete language, Minnesota statute section 245.4875, subdivision 6, which requires counties to establish coordinating councils for children's mental health services. The law was repealed by laws 2014, chapter 262, article 3, section 18.
Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, and I have one more question, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Thiessen.
If he'd yield.
Representative Schomacker will yield to another question. Representative Thiessen.
Yeah, and this is on page 53 in the critical access dental provisions, and we're repealing a whole section of requirements for who qualifies for critical access dental.
Representative Schomacker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and to Minority Leader Thiessen. For Section 58 here, the amendment removes a provision relating to critical access dental clinics that did not receive federal approval under the request submitted by the Department of Human Services to the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services. The provision was enacted in Laws 2012, Chapter 247, Article 1, Section 17, as paragraph D, and was subsequently relettered as paragraph C. It was effective July 1st, 2012, or upon federal approval, whichever is later. Since federal approval is denied in June of 2013, it cannot become effective and is being repealed by amendment. The Department of Human Services was consulted in preparing this amendment.
Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If Representative Schomacker will yield for one more question.
He will yield. Representative Thiessen.
So on that, did we book any savings related to that provision where we're going to seek a federal waiver in 2012? Do you know, and whether those savings, was there any fiscal note associated with that, seeking that waiver from the federal government? And if there was either savings or costs associated with, are those being accounted for somewhere in the budget since we didn't get the waiver?
Representative Schomacker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Thiessen, I'm not aware.
Representative Thiessen. Further discussion to the bill? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll. Members, we are under call. Members, please vote. We are under call. Members, please vote. We are under call. The clerk will close the roll. There being 128 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to. The next bill is House File 1193. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 1193, number 5 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to human services.
The member from Dakota, Representative Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this bill exempts after-school programs for school-age child care licensing, provided they meet certain standards. And it also repeals the moratorium that was for school-age child care licensing that expires in July. So this bill was developed in a huge collaboration between DHS and Ignite, which is a network of after-school programs throughout the state. It's supported by a variety of nonprofit organizations, and currently there are 26 exemptions from school-age child care licensing. However, many after-school programs don't fit neatly in the current existing exemptions. So the moratorium was put in place so that we could work on finding some solutions that work for more after-school programs, and this bill is a product of that work. To be eligible for this exemption, a program must be operated by a nonprofit organization serving youth in kindergarten through grade 12, provide structured youth development activities that take place in school while it's not in session, and have a director or supervisor on site who is responsible for ensuring the health and safety of our students with supervising staff and volunteers. On top of that, they must obtain consent from a parent or guardian of each youth participant and provide written notice to each parent or guardian that the program is not licensed or supervised by the state of Minnesota and is not eligible to receive child care assistance payments. So without this bill, members, youth across the state will not be able to continue to participate in these wonderful after-school latchkey programs. And to quote DHS, programs that have shown themselves to be valuable resources to children's, families, and communities. And I ask for your green vote. Thank you.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Liebling moves to amend House Bill number 1193, the first engrossment, and the amendment is coded A2.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Liebling, to your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to withdraw the amendment.
Liebling withdraws the amendment. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 1193.
Third reading. Further discussion to the bill. Seeing none and hearing none, the clerk will take the roll. Members, we are still under call. Please vote. Members, we are under call. Please vote. The member from Washington, Representative Schoen, votes no. The clerk will close the roll. Schoen votes no. There being 79 ayes and 50 nays, the bill is the motion prevails and the bill is adopted and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar of the day is Senate File 1499. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 1499, number 6 on the calendar of the day, an act relating to local government.
The member from Scott, the bill author, Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker, the bill allows the Cedar Lake Area Water and Sanitary Sewer District extra time to file a certificate of approval of a 2014 special law for the district that was enacted in the 2014 omnibus tax bill. If the certificate is filed by June 30th, 2015, the special law is effective retroactive to May 21st, 2014.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File number 1499.
Further discussion to the bill? Third reading. Further discussion to the bill. The member from Dakota, Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And would Representative Vogel yield to a question?
He will yield. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Vogel, we've dealt with some things like this in the past where there have been missed deadlines. Could you explain why there was a missed deadline? Was there a change in staff or change in personnel, or what was the cause? And then was there any consequence within the local unit of government for that?
Representative Vogel.
Mr. Speaker, Representative, As I understand it, the sanitary sewer district did pass a resolution, but unfortunately didn't understand the filing requirement with the state. So therefore, the resolution that they actually passed wasn't considered valid, and now they have to pass another one and have it recorded properly.
Representative Hansen.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Representative Vogel, if you'd yield for another question.
He will yield. Representative Hansen.
Mr. Speaker, Representative Vogel, so the sanitary district, which I assume is probably a joint powers board among local units of government, is it city officials or county officials or township? I'm just looking for if there was a consequence for that error or where the breakdown occurred in terms of this process.
Representative Vogel.
Mr. Speaker, or Representative, the sanitary district board is actually a small group of volunteers that just runs this particular entity. They do not have taxing power. They actually get their taxing levy authority from the county. So they've been acting as a sewer district, but because they're relatively short on expertise on doing this type of thing and just running the district itself, didn't understand that they needed to get the resolution filed. And this simply allows them to do what they've already done, only in a timely fashion, since they misunderstood the filing deadline.
Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, I think last year we had a situation like this with Representative Franson's district. So I believe there is precedent for this. I'll support the bill. I think when we went through this before with other entities, we wanted to make sure that that would never happen again, that we wouldn't be, if we've extended it, that the entity that has to make the deadline absolutely positively is going to make the next deadline, so that they only get one shot at this redo and it doesn't come back again.
Further discussion to the bill? Seeing none and hearing none, the clerk will take the roll. Members, we are under call. Please vote. Members, we are under call. Please vote. The clerk will close the roll. There being 129 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.
Mr. Speaker, I move we lift the call of the House.
Representative Peterson moves a lift of the call of the House. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? The call is lifted. The next bill on the calendar of the day is House File 1556. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 1556, number 8 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to veterans.
To the author, Representative Lueck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This bill simply changes our Hire the Veterans Month from May to July. It was requested by the Veterans Department, and I'd like to thank co-authors Representative Purcell, Representative Newton, and Representative Howe, and Chairman Detmer. I would urge a green vote on this.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 1556.
Further discussion to the Lueck bill? Seeing none and hearing none, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. There being 129 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 450. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 450, number 9 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to the military.
The member from Washington, Representative Lohmer, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. So House File 450 is a bill that was brought to me by a constituent named Richard Glasgow. He is the founder of an organization called Dear American Hero, which exists to thank veterans and their spouses and families for the sacrifices that they make to defend and assure our freedoms as Americans. When he discovered that Harvey Mayhill, a gentleman from South Carolina, brought the idea of legislation to his state to recognize the unrecognized heroes, he wanted to do the same. I was happy to bring this legislation forth. It has passed unanimously through the committee process. It's passed in the Senate, and I hope that you will join me today in supporting House File 450, which will make Minnesota only the second state in the nation that honors these unsung heroes, the spouses and families of our veterans. So anyone who's here today who's either a veteran or a family member of a veteran will totally understand the sacrifices made. Several years ago, when our son Chris was deployed for 15 months to Iraq, it affected our entire family, myself, his dad and brothers, and of course his wife Kendra. Several weeks after their wedding, Chris left for basic training, and within a year, Chris was deployed. After returning for several months, he was deployed again. When they were expecting their first child and our grandchild, it was a difficult time going through that very special time apart. But my daughter-in-law is an amazing young woman who told me she was anxious and willing to sacrifice and do her part. She's not alone. These are the unrecognized heroes who are home giving birth, going to PTA meetings, mowing grass, shoveling snow, working, paying the bills, repairing and maintaining the home, going to weddings and funerals alone. This bill costs no money. It's not intended to be a holiday. The actual day has had much discussion, and the Senate has passed the Sunday prior to Memorial Day as the official day. This bill is simply a thank you. Our military families embody the ideals we cherish: commitment, loyalty, and strength. They stand beside those who stand behind our flag, giving their all and making tremendous sacrifices. They shoulder the burdens of countless moves and stressful deployments and uphold their end of the bargain. On Military Spouse and Family Appreciation Day, we celebrate the force behind the force and show these Minnesota heroes and families the full support from our whole state. So most times when you talk to a veteran and you ask them, what can I do to help you, they always say the same thing: just be there for my family. Yes, they're sacrificing, but they realize their families are as well. So I'm excited that if we pass this bill today, we will be the second state in the country to have a specific day to recognize our veterans, spouses, and families. I hope you can join me and vote green to support our veterans. And I just want to thank Representative Pugh for handing out these thank you cards that are, like I said, from my friend Richard Glasgow, and I know she wants to say a few words, so thank you, members.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 450.
Representative Pugh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise in support of this terrific bill, and I'm just so delighted that it's here today on the floor of the House of Representatives. I was fortunate enough to hear this bill twice in State Government Finance and in Veterans Affairs Division, and just felt so uplifted each time I did. So thank you to Representative Lohmer for all the hard work that you've done bringing this legislation forth. I've had the privilege of knowing Richard, the creator of Dear American Hero, the organization which has facilitated the distribution of millions of these cards, these thank you cards, which I've asked our pages to distribute to members' desks. I've known him for a number of years, and I've really enjoyed sharing these cards with service members and their families over the years. In fact, members, sometimes I think that we don't know how to say thank you, or we don't know what to say when we see a service member, so we don't say anything at all. And these cards really make it easy to express our appreciation for the sacrifices that our service members and their families make for our freedom every single day. Whether we pull one out of our purse or our wallet, they're that easy and that convenient, or grab one from the console of our car to place on a window of a military family's car at the mall, or whether we just hand a card to a service member ourselves. It's just so easy. So I've shared a few cards with members, thinking that maybe you might enjoy expressing your appreciation and saying thank you in this same way. So thank you, members. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and especially thank you to those in our body who have served and those who have family members that serve as well. So thank you.
The member from Washington, Representative Detmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Representative Lohmer and Representative Pugh. Thank you for bringing this forward. I think I've known Richard Glasgow for several years too. And one thing that we should all put on our calendars on June 13th, 2005 at 10 a.m. We're going to have the Minnesota Family Tribute dedication on the Capitol grounds. This is a tribute being built on the Capitol grounds, and it's going to be dedicated on June 13th, 2015 for our families. And our families are the ones that are taking care of the home front. Thank you.
Further discussion to the bill? Seeing none and hearing none, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. There being 128 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar of the day is Senate File 1741. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 1741, number 7 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to health.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Hilstrom, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Members, this bill is about the medical debt that's becoming a serious problem in America and in Minnesota. It places thousands of Minnesotans and their family in financial jeopardy. Medical debt is the #1 cause of personal bankruptcy, and medical debt is responsible for more collections than credit cards. In fact, according to the collections industry owned data, more than 40% of Americans report being burdened with medical debt. Members, this is a simple bill, and what it says is that before a collection agency can take actions that are considered extraordinary, like taking out a medical lien, foreclosing on a patient's home, garnishing their wages, suing the patient, or selling the debt to a debt buyer, they have to have shared their charity care policy. Members, it's really simple that they have to do this. There's a new IRS regulation that requires them to share this policy anyways. So this just gives Minnesotans a cause of action to say they can stop this extraordinary action until they've seen that policy. I ask your support.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File Number 1741.
Discussion on the Hilstrom bill. Seeing none and hearing none, the clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. There being 128 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. Announcements by the Speaker.
Announcement by the Speaker. The Speaker announces the appointment of the following members of the House to a conference committee on House File Number 848. Davids, Drazkowski, Barrett, Swazinski, and Lincheski.
Reports from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Pepin from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration, pursuant to Rules 1.21 and 3.33, designates the following bills to be placed on the calendar for the day for Thursday, May 7th, 2015, and establishes a pre-filing requirement for amendments offered to the following bills. Senate File Numbers 997, 1438, and 1523, and House Files 177 and 1695.
Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there is no objection, we will take action on these first. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the motion carries. Announcements.
Mr. Speaker.
The member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was going to rise under motions and present the same motion I did yesterday with respect to suspending the rules for the firefighters to take toxic cancer-causing chemicals out of flame retardants. Mr. Speaker, perhaps just as a parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker, if I might.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
Has Senate File 1215 been scheduled to come either before Rules or any other committee that you're aware of, Mr. Speaker?
Representative Atkins, at this point, I do not believe it has been scheduled.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is Representative Howe on the floor? Will Representative Howe yield, please?
He will yield. Representative Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This, obviously, time is running out. Representative Howe, are you, this is the bill that would, that the firefighters have pursued. It passed the Senate 59-2. It removes some cancer-causing chemicals from flame retardant materials for which there are safer alternatives. Has this bill now been scheduled for a hearing?
Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Atkins, excuse me. Actually, we expect to have in our hands by the end of today something from the Revisor's office as kind of an agreement between the two parties. And from my understanding, we are looking to schedule a hearing for this next week.
Representative Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Howe, I'll remind you, next week is like the last week of session, when we tend to take up a lot of really long bills here on the House floor. My hope, I mean, I'm not trying to engage in hyperbole here. You have firefighters that are dying. The cancer rates among firefighters are 62% higher with respect to esophageal cancer and several other cancers Representative Simonson talked about. If we can't get a hearing on a bill like this that passed the Senate 59-2, like this week, then I plan to make my same motion again and again and again until we do. And Representative Howe, I have the utmost respect for you. You're the guy carrying this bill. I want you to have success with it. But folks, I know that there's billion-dollar chemical companies on the other side that are lobbying against this. But when we're talking about kids' safety and we're talking about firefighters' safety, we can't delay any longer. We're running out of time. And to give this bill a slow death, well, that's what we're doing to firefighters right now, Representative Howe. So I would hope, and Chairman Hoppe, if we can, I think on behalf of the DFL members of the Commerce Committee, we are at your beck and call to hear this bill this week so that we can have it on the floor next week. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. On January 4th, 1977, a member of this House took the oath of office. 14,000 days later, I have the good fortune to sit right next to her. It is Representative Murphy M's 14,000th day of service to this great state. I think that deserves recognition.
Announcements. The representative from Hennepin, Representative Earhart.
Privilege of the House, Mr. Speaker. You know, this is going to come a little late for some of you, but because you've already been to lunch. But on Saturday, I had a nice turkey dinner, and almost immediately after, I began showing signs of flu. And I was all flued out all day Sunday. And so I got here on Monday and I heard about this giveaway, the Turkey Burger Day. And I began to wonder, well, I wonder, because I remember a couple of years ago when we had some transference of Asian flu to birds and then to people. And I thought, well, I think maybe I should mention this, at least give you a fair warning that there's a possibility. But I didn't get a chance to do that. And after I found out, as a matter of fact, that this was a bipartisan offer, not just an offer to the DFL, I felt a little better about it. The burgers, I mean. Now, I put on my former doctoring hats and clothes and began to think about this. And what I thought, well, there must be some way, even after you have ingested this possible poison, that we might help you out. So I looked around for any type of vaccine that might be available. Well, I couldn't find enough needles, and it was too unsanitary, so I ruled out that. But then I found that there's some oral vaccines,
Mr. Speaker,
that you can take
Mr.
that
Speaker.
would at least slow it down, if
Mr.
not.
Speaker.
Representative Poppe, for what purpose do you rise?
A point of order, Mr. Speaker.
State your point of order.
I'm just wondering, it appears as though this is going to be maybe a joke at some point, but the turkey farmers in our state are suffering a very serious crisis. It is something that is not a partisan issue. It is something that impacts each and every one of us. It impacts our, turkey is a safe food to eat. It's not something that we need to be making light of. And I'm confused by what Representative Earhart is trying to do And so I'm just need to respond and ask for you to tell him to stop. Thank you.
The member from Cottonwood. The member from Candy, Ojai, Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, I'm a little...
For what purpose do you rise?
A point of privilege, Speaker.
State your point of privilege.
I just wanted to make a comment that the information given to us today seems a little erratic. Again, with the current situation, there's no proof. I'm just a little surprised Representative Earnhardt is going this direction. Again, I'm assuming it's a joke, some sort of a funny thing, but it's not a funny, laughing matter at all to our citizens and county residents in the state of Minnesota. So I appreciate bringing this to a quick close, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Representative Miller, for what purpose do you rise?
Mr. Speaker, point of personal privilege.
State your point of personal privilege.
Mr. Speaker, I want it to be clear that the Department of Health, the Board of Animal Health, and the Minnesota Department of Agriculture have made it abundantly clear that eating turkey is very safe for human consumption, that there is no problem associated with the consumption of the turkey meat. Thank you.
We are under announcements. I will return to Representative Earhart.
Well, Mr. Speaker and members, I have doctors that live next door to me where I live, and I was talking to them about the seriousness of the problem that's going on in Minnesota. And she reminded me, the woman who I borrowed this quote from, reminded me that years ago, not too many years ago, there was a transference of bird flu to humans. And I said, well, what can I do about
Representative Hamilton, for what purpose do you rise?
Point of personal privilege, Mr.
State
Speaker.
your point of personal privilege, Representative Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'll just reiterate what Representative Poppe has said, Representative Baker, and Representative Miller. I'd also like to request the Department of Health to come over and take nasal swabs of Representative Earhart to confirm or deny his allegations, because what he is saying, I will go out on a limb here and state what he is saying is absolutely false, and it can be confirmed. The Department of Health will be over, and they will take nasal swabs or whatever else they need to do to validate or put to rest his allegations. It's not funny at all, and like I said, we have a tremendous amount of people working on this very serious issue, and we worked very, very together in a bipartisan way to address it. And so again, if the allegations are being made here today, I'm going to ask the Department of Health comes over and sees the representative to put this to rest.
Representative Pepin, for what purpose do you rise?
Mr. Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 9 a.m. Wednesday, May 6, 2015.
Representative Pepin moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 9 a.m. on Wednesday, May 6, 2015. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion prevails. Representative Pepin.
I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative
Mr. Speaker, I had the floor at one time.
Pepin moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned until 9 a.m. The motion prevails. We are adjourned until 9 a.m. Wednesday, May 6th.